Winter is coming.
Might just be the cold.
Winter is coming.
It's cold outside.
You don't know cold.
Winter is coming for him.
It's either me or this cold, and it doesn't appear to be going anywhere.
And winter is coming.
You look cold, boys.
Tis a bit nippy.
Winter is coming. Winter is coming.
That's cold. Winter is coming.
I'm cold.
It's cold and it's wet.
Winter is coming.
You're crying because you're cold?
You're a long way from home. Winter is coming.
I imagine you might be rather cold.
And winter is coming.
Oh, that's all right, I'm fine.
You're not. You're freezing.
And with that, winter is here. We're talking, of course, about our good friend Russ Winter. And I am Robert Phoenix, your intrepid host, broadcasting to you live from a generic hotel just outside of Houston. And Russ, how you doing, my friend?
But I'm in my generic apartment building with my Prague Castle picture in the background.
Well, your location seems a little bit more interesting than mine, although the atmospheric conditions are pretty interesting. There's flooding going on in this area, so that's at least we have a little bit of meteorological drama to go with the stay here.
Sort of like this drama, like the system is, in my view, in free fall and can only be maintained through brute force, which breeds more resistance, cascade failure, heavens fall.
Wow, that is an optimistic outlook. I like it though.
We got to pass a bunch of laws again, so people won't hate you. Really, that's how it works. I mean, we're going to have a little later on the show. We're going to talk about psychopathy. I've got some interesting things to bring to the table on that.
Okay,
how psychopaths operate.
We had a lot to cover here today. Before we start burrowing down the rabbit hole, please hit the like and hit the subscribe for the channel. It certainly helps the channel. And just a quick shout out to Chris at truehempscience.com. Go there, check out his products. 15MINS is your code to get a free goodie bag if you purchase $100 or more of his CBD products. $150 get you free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. All right, so we took care of our business. Don't forget to go find Russ's website, winterwatch.net, and put it in your bookmarks. He is always refreshing content on a consistent basis, and some of the most important political content that you'll consume on the internet. And what else, Russ, do I want to add to this briefing? Oh, yeah. I think it was earlier this week, I put out a call to people to subscribe to you on Twitter because they've kind of put you in the corner over on Twitter. And
well, we could go into a little bit of how they did it.
Why don't we start there?
Yeah. So I've got the articles called "The Twitter/X is a thoroughly dishonest broker," and so I'm on there, throttled down, don't really get much reach, and so they sort of sent me a very, very strange message, which is like another layer of suppression of my material or comments.
Yep.
And it says, we have found that your account may contain spam or be engaging in other types of platform manipulation. You may not use X's service in a manner manner intended to artificially amplify, suppress information, or engage in behavior which manipulates or disrupts people's experience, or platform manipulation defenses on X. What does this mean for your account? Well, they're just your reach of your account's limited. Nothing new there. I haven't really seen too much change. So it's funny. After I read this, I'm kind of I'm going through Twitter, and I come across this tweet. So basically, what they're saying is the rule is here: inauthentic engagements that attempt to make accounts or content appear to be more popular or active than they are. And we've talked about this before.
Right.
Coordinated activity that attempts to artificially influence conversations through the use of multiple accounts, fake accounts, automation, and or scripting. Well, I don't do that. It's just me. I don't have an unlimited budgets like these other assholes that just engage in this kind of behavior. I just say things that some people don't like, I guess. That's about all I can say. It's just little old me, the keyboard. I'm hardly a tech guru, kind of an old guy, right?
Yep.
So lo and behold, I come across this tweet by Citizens Free Press, and let's just go through this. And it says, "Did you go through the comments on this?"
Let me go through. Let me get into your Twitter. Hold on.
Well, I have it. I've got it on my article, so you can pop this up on there.
Okay. Did you link to it in the
at the bottom of the article? Let's just go through what they're really doing. They're picking on me. Everything's inverted. Everything they accuse, they're doing themselves. I've really noticed that.
Yes.
And so there's been an attempt to mock and diminish and make fun of and shame the protesters. And I'm just going to tell you flat out, I'm all on board with these people. And I find it very, very ironic that a bunch of 120-pound liberal arts majors are the people that are really leading the fight against Zog. It's very ironic, don't you think?
Absolutely. Hold on a second. Let me get the. Is this where we want to be?
Hang on a sec. Yeah, and flip down the page to this mugshot part. So this is the rules of this fake Twitter, and they're fake rules. And then the same day that I'm kind of rendered on this special ban that they got me on, I see the Citizens Free Press. Okay, see the mugshot?
Yeah.
Now, I looked at the mugshot and I kind of going, what's the big deal? They look like sort of slightly nonconformist Gen Z people. But just click through the comments. Just go through the comments. They're all one-liners. Just read some of them. You got to go through this. Just go through about 12 of them. They're all kind of the same on the Twitter comments.
Yeah, I'm going down there. Salty Cracker says Sophia looks like Toxic Avenger's daughter.
Yeah, there's one-liner.
I think Stephanie Mendoza stole her sister's ID. They all look trans to me. Eddie Munster is now a Stephanie. They look like they just got out of a 15-year stint in one of those program schools. Deaf Middle Eastern, especially the ginger. Stains on the gene pool. The fastest swimmers. Soy army. They look like they have an extra chromosome. Orangutan-looking bastards.
What a friggin' contrived. That is totally contrived. All one-liners say pretty much the same thing over and over and over again. 400 comments like that.
Well, I know Salty Cracker. Salty Cracker
is the lead. So whoever Salty Cracker is, she's involved in this thing.
It's a he. Salty Cracker's a he.
He's an influencer, so he leads off.
Totally.
Okay, so he may be a real account, but then what follows is a whole stream of these fake bot comments, this platform manipulation that they accused me of. Unbelievable. And they're just using this to just shame and mock these protesters. That's what they're doing.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think these are real people?
The commenters?
No, even the mugshots.
That's a good question too. But if you took it as face value, they're just pictures of somewhat slightly nonconformist Gen Zers. There's nothing particularly unusual.
Well, okay. So
I mean, how would you and I look at a mug shot? A little shady.
I would try to look. I'd go one way or the other. I would try to go either full evil or look goofy, right? Like,
right.
I wouldn't try to have any kind of dignified manner in a mugshot.
Well, I don't think you really could. I don't think I've ever seen a dignified mugshot. And so these kids are doing okay for a mugshot. And what's with this platform manipulation? That just pisses me off. It's just so blatant, so obvious. And it's very widespread. They're doing this all over the place.
Let's just take a look at these faces for a moment. Let's say they are real people who have been arrested. They're very unusual looking people. And I have noticed that people's faces and body types have changed. Like, it's just weird. It's just, I've seen, like, if you were to go back, and I've done this before, by the way, if you go back and you look at high school yearbooks from like the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s, people are really defined. In the 60s, you'll find people who are in high school who look like they're in their mid-20s. They don't look distorted. They don't look kind of strangely malformed. In the 70s, when I grew up, I went back and I looked at a picture of my high school football team. And, it's all just, loaded with testosterone, right? And even the kids that didn't play on the football team, maybe they weren't football players, but they were kind of, I don't want to use the word average, but they looked different. My point is that in some ways the species has changed.
Yeah, I think you're right. But a lot of it is also a lot of mixed ethnic people. There's a lot of the United States demographics has changed. It's half Hispanic, half white. A lot of Asians coming into the mix, and that makes you look different. When we were young, we were just white kids, just straight up black and white kids. That's it.
Right. So you were white, you were black, or you were Mexican. I think that's a good point too. I tell you though, this Sophia Ellis Young looks like Joaquin Phoenix or Heath Ledger from The Joker. Look at her.
Yeah, but she's the only one.
No, I know, but did she purposefully go after that effect? I mean, that's kind of weird.
I don't know. I don't think it's any big deal. And I've kind of looked at some of the I call them kids. It's probably the wrong term to use. The Gen Zers in the protests. We should take a look at some of the protest footage.
Yeah,
and these guys and the guys that are up there on the barricade are girls or young women and soy boys.
Yeah,
I just tip my hats to them. I don't like this demeaning of these protesters that got arrested in New Mexico. I just despise this kind of shit.
So let me ask you a question, because this is something that I've been thinking about. Do you think that what we're dealing with is kind of this loaded charge from 2020 when, all hell broke out on the streets and nobody did anything, and there's a lot of animus that has been built up since then, and some of this is what we're seeing as a result of that?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's platform manipulation. It kind of, the don't tread on me crowd, or the gun, don't take my guns or whatever you want to call it, they're cowards. They're cowards now. And all our civil liberties are going to be taken away. They're passing these strange hate laws. And the same people that you think you would count on to defend the First Amendment, are just nowhere to be seen. Or attacking these protesters that are really fighting against Zog and fighting against genocide. Please tread on me, all tied up.
Yeah.
So I'm not very impressed with the so-called conservative liberty movement on this.
Well, they've slid into the Zog pocket.
Yes.
That's where they've gone.
And you're right. They're basically taking their animus from the Floyd thing, where they just let these protesters or rioters or whatever run amok, and now they have a chance to get their licks in. I mean, did you see this crowd that showed up and countered the protest at UCLA?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know what it reminded me of? It actually reminded me of like the Ergun gang from when, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, put up that little video I sent you of Ben Shapiro and listen to this guy. I mean, first of all, it demonstrates what a psycho is like, and then just kind of look at some of the images that came out of that.
All right, let me see if I can find it here.
Kind of near the bottom, right at the bottom.
All right. Okay, the last one I have is, here we go. All right, there it is. There it is right there. All right. This guy's such a weasel. God. Okay.
Anti-Semitic protests on college campuses where Jewish students are being.
Hold on. Let's make it bigger. He's always got that 3-day stubble too. It's like, dude, either shave it or grow it.
I'm trying to prove he has some testosterone.
Jewish students are being spit upon, physically assaulted, harassed, blocked from going to class, and people are chanting genocidal slogans.
Take off your hijab and get a job.
Really, where are the Jewish students assaulting the Palestinian students? Where are they? Where are they? Anywhere? Anti-Semitic protests on college campuses where Jewish students are being spit upon, physically assaulted.
Now, obviously, that guy is a Jew spitting. Just to clarify that.
Blocked from going to class, and people are chanting genocidal slogans.
Take off your hijab and get a job.
Really, where are the Jewish students assaulting the Palestinian students? Where are they? Where are they? Anywhere?
God.
Amazing. It's just amazing.
He's nauseating. He's nauseating.
And let's just segue right into some more of this shit. We're going to get some momentum going on this whole theme. So let's go next to, let's listen to what Bibi Netanyahu had to say to a group of Holocaust survivors in Jerusalem the other day.
All right. Hold on, we gotta start from the beginning. All right, so this is his wife next to him, right? I reckon
he's got a group of old timers he's talking to that he rolled in.
So he's talking in Hebrew, So keep your eye on the subtitles.
תראה, אם אפשר לקבל את עזרת הגויים, אני בעד, תמיד. אבל בשואה הגדולה ביותר, השואה, מנהיגים דגולים, כמו רוזוולט, שאמרו לו מה שקורה באושוויץ, ובבירקנאו, ובמחנות המוות. אמרו לו, הוא ידע. והתשובה שלו הייתה, על גופתי טייס אחד ייפול כאן. נכון. על גופתי טייס אחד, כך הוא אמר. Over my dead body. I won't lose a single pilot.
I'm going to show you in a minute. This is a blatant lie.
סירבו לקבל את היהודים. ואלה היו מנהיגים גדולים, אין מה לדבר. צ'רצ'יל, שאני מאוד מעריך אותו, הוא ידע, הוא ניסה לגייס, אנשים לא יודעים את זה, הוא ניסה לגייס נגד מחנות המוות. הצבא שלו עשה נגדו מרד. אם אנחנו צריכים לעמוד לבד, עומדים לבד. אם אפשר לגייס את הגויים, מה טוב.
Okay, so okay, so what he's basically saying, you know, they're going to abandon us or whatever. They have a history of cutting us loose or whatever. Now let me give you the real history of this incident. He's talking about Roosevelt, and you know it's very easy to find. You can actually go to Wikipedia. You don't have to go to some Holocaust denial site or anything for this. It's just common knowledge. What happened. So I've got the script that I got from Wikipedia. It says it's historical truth about Bibi's accusations. President Roosevelt, sensitive to the importance of his Jewish constituency, consulted with Jewish leaders. He followed their advice to not emphasize the Holocaust for fear of inciting anti-Semitism in the U.S. I don't know if that's true. I don't think what I've read about this period is they were kind of uncertain about what was happening, probably for obvious reasons. If you really went down the rabbit hole, they knew that there was labor camps. They knew that people were being detained. They knew there were camps, but they didn't really, the term Holocaust never came about until the 1960s.
Right.
So U.S. historians Richard Bretman and Alan Lichtman argued that after Pearl Harbor, Roosevelt and his military and diplomatic advisors sought to unite the nation and blunt Nazi propaganda by avoiding the appearance of fighting a war for the Jews. They tolerated no potentially direct decisive initiatives or any diversions from their campaign to win the war as quickly and decisively as possible. So that's the backdrop that Bibi is trying to draw on, right? But then it goes on. This is like the footnotes that these two historians argue. Quote, Roosevelt played no apparent role in the decision not to bomb Auschwitz. Even if the matter had reached his desk, however, he would not likely have contravened his military. Every major American Jewish leader and organization that he respected remained silent on the matter, as did all influential members of Congress and opinion makers in the mainstream media. British Prime Minister Churchill did not see bombing as a solution, given that the bombers were inaccurate and would also kill prisoners on the ground. Okay, then I came across this Dino Brugoni. Now, Dino Brugoni, I did an article on him because he's kind of an expert on photography, and he analyzed the JFK assassination. But here's what he said. Photo interpreters depend heavily on procedure of existing knowledge about a subject or installation. I did not find a single reference in which interpreters were told to look for gas chambers or crematoriums that were killing thousands each day. There simply was no historical or intelligence procedure for genocide on such a scale. Most World War II interpreters I've spoken to found the concept unbelievable, unimaginable, and completely incongruous. For that matter, most of the general public of the Allied countries were unaware of the genocide activities during the war. Like I said, there's a lot of rabbit holes here, but they would fly. He refers to these different flights that went over the area.
Right.
And they would take pictures, but they just couldn't pick anything out. Well, I wonder why that is. I mean, I guess how would you pick out a facility that's designed to get rid of lice? and the prisoners. How would you even do that?
Right. So E. Michael Jones is a font of historical knowledge when it comes to this. And he has dissected the events of World War II in the camps. And we can get into it a little bit here, but if you really want to get into the gritty, I mean, I think that's the guy who's done the historical heavy lifting. And, essentially, when it came to bombing, well, they had no problem bombing Cologne, right? They used to use the what's called the Dome, which is this, enormous church in Cologne, which I've been to, and they used that as a site to bomb the city of Cologne. They left the church alone, but they bombed the hell out of Cologne. And then, they chose to bomb Dresden, and they firebombed Dresden and just laid Dresden to waste. And that was a Dwight Eisenhower decision because he was in charge of the European theater. So it's not like they couldn't bomb. They just chose different targets. And it almost feels like...
Yeah, but that's part of it, but I don't think that they really even knew. Their knowledge of what was going on. I mean, they had...
Well, I would agree with that. I mean, from what I do understand about the... and this is where, we get into the kind of the fuzzy details. But, I had heard that they did bomb the tracks, which were the supply chain for the Germans and the supply chain for their manufacturing, but also for these camps. So they couldn't get any food into these camps. And then what happens?
Yeah, that kind of happened that sort of late in the war when they had total air superiority. But anyway, I don't want to go down this path too much because, first of all, it's really illegal to even talk too much about this. The point I'm making...
This is a big question. It's like, well, why?
Well, the main point I'm making is that Bibi's really taking a real cheap shot at President Roosevelt here based upon nothing that makes any sense from the historical record. And it looks to me like
I think sociopaths will use anybody, will take cheap shots at anybody.
Exactly. Anything that fits their little agenda. And in fact, I brought to the table this evening a little bit more on psychopaths to go through. Hey, while we're at it, let's just do the one above that, above the deep BB one. Here's kind of what these Israelis are like. This is what the old timers are like. How was Israel formed? These are the guys that are involved in the first Nakba will tell you. Now, anybody who's been paying attention to the modern day Nakba knows what they're like. And if you're not paying attention, I'm sorry, you just can't come to the table for any kind of discussion here. You don't know what these people are like. So let's take a look at them back in the old days. You see it?
I do. I'm just teeing it up.
It's no different today. They smirk, smile, laugh.
נו בהם, בלי נקיפת מצפון.
הרגת, אז עשית דבר טוב. הייתי מוכן להרוג.
Go back to the beginning, yeah.
מתי הרגנו בהם, בלי נקיפת מצפון.
הרגת, אז עשית דבר טוב. הייתי מוכן להרוג.
אני אספר לה שאני הייתי רוצח.
אתה יכול לראות שאתה הגדרת אתה הרג את כולם.
בזמן קרב, אם מישהו ירים ידיים, משהו כזה. לא לקחתי שבועים.
כמה אתה חושב אנשים הרגת ככה?
לא ספרתי. אני לא יכול לדעת בחיי.
הוא תפס אישה, חתיכה צעירה, נכנס לבית אחד, הכין חדר מיטות, מיטה ורצה לזיין אותה.
הילדה חזרה, זה סמרטוט,
אחד אנס שם איזה ילדה בת 16, משהו כזה, אתה מבין? אבל זה מכוער מאוד, היה לנו בחור אחד, הוא נפטר, הוא היה פרא אדם, הוא לקח פשוט מאוד ורצח אותם בתוך המכלאות. חוטי ברזל כאלה, עגולים כאלה, אספו כל הגברים, הם יושבים שם כולם על הרצפה, ובא מישהו ולוקח תת מקלע ומתחיל זה, מחליף מחסנית, שלקחו את הלוויורים ורדפו אחרי חבר'ה ושרפו אותם. זה היה משהו זוועתי, וזה אסור לספר, אני לא אדבר על זה. מלחמה זה מלחמה.
Man, we're smiling while they're talking about
this has been going on for generations. You know, this whole attitude that they have.
They're smiling.
Very psychopathic. It's almost like they delight in it. They get kind of turned on, like sexual sadists or something.
Clearly. So I found that there's an interesting distinction between sociopaths and psychopaths. And psychopaths, they've done like clinical studies on psychopaths and sociopaths. Psychopaths will commit a heinous crime, and then they will go through some very weird kind of contrition and remorse, but then they'll do it again, right? They're in this weird bucket of doing something aberrant and then having like horrific feelings about it, and then doing.
So they have, so in other words, they sort of have a conscience,
they
and
kind of have a conscience. Sociopaths don't.
Well, no, psychopaths don't. It's the reverse.
No, psychopaths have a conscience. Psychopaths will actually experience remorse, right? Sociopaths will not. They will not experience remorse. So there's a slight distinction between the two. One is willing, they're both willing to commit atrocities, but one will have like massive feelings of regret, and they'll do it again. But the other won't. These guys are sociopaths. They have no remorse.
Yep. And so here's let's go to this one. Okay, we're gonna look at a couple more of these videos, and I brought to the table a special treat today. We're going to look at about an interview, maybe about 7 or 8 minutes of it, with a guy named Bob Barella. Bob Barella was a serial killer in Kansas City who tortured and murdered 7 young men in his home. And there's an analysis of his whole communication by this behavior panel. I don't know if you've ever seen them.
No.
Where they look at the body language and the different ways of speaking, and it's a special treat because we're in this new world of psychopathic, sociopathic behavior that's just run amok. It's just like I say, heaven falls. Okay, so the first one is empty soul psychopath demonstrates how to be the victim, and you see the one, the Israeli ambassador to the UK, the little clip.
Let's see. So here's what I have. I have the video I just played. Above that,
it's in my article, The Empty Soul Psychopath.
Okay. All right. Let me go and get out of here. Is it on your front page, or do I have to do a search for it? Oh, I see it. The psychopathic takeover. Is that it?
No, it's April 19th, so it's a couple weeks old. I can send it to you.
Yeah, I can find it. Hold on.
April 19th.
Yeah, I just do this.
And there's actually 2 interviews, another one on the 26th. They came out about a week apart, and they're so good that I had to kind of put up separate around the webs on them.
Okay, I'm there. So let me tell you.
The whole thing with this anti-Semitic laws is they don't want people noticing. But the problem with the internet, I don't know how they're going to shut all this stuff down.
Well, apparently either the CIA or the NSA now has control over it because part of that bill that they just passed has new FISA stipulations, rules, regulations that includes taking control of the internet. So that's their kill switch, right?
Well, the problem is that all you got to do is go find interview. All I'm doing here is looking at a couple interviews on mainstream media that these psychopaths conduct. So how do they block that? They'd have to completely shut down any interactions between, say, the Israeli officials and the mainstream media, where they couldn't go on interviews or anything. I don't see how they can do it.
Well,
they can throttle down the really mean-spirited stuff.
I mean, so here's what I think. I mean, I think that they have the technology at hand to have extremely powerful bots, AI, and algorithms. And just like they, have the Promise software, right? And the Promise software can just key into keywords in a conversation, and it triggers this alert, and then the conversation is recorded. They could do the same thing with the internet. And if they have a series of keywords or phrases, and it's picked up, it's automatically flagged, and then there is a swift determination by AI as to whether or not it is something that can be seen by people. And then if it's determined to be not seen by people, they'll throttle it. They'll put a Ziploc baggie over it, or it won't show up on the search results. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. I mean, we're dealing with the
yeah, we're dealing with that already. Yeah, we're dealing with the suppression already.
Yeah.
And so I suppose what they could do is they could take a site. They probably would tag a site like mine and then scan everything that I notice, because I'm a noticer.
Right.
And so let's see what this Russ Winter guy is noticing. And then that way it kind of saves them the work. So probably
they're already doing it to you on Twitter.
Yeah, I know.
So, all right, should I play this Syrian girl video?
Yeah.
Okay. Israeli ambassador to the UK. Just imagine this huge missile. Think about it. Falling in the middle of a city like Jerusalem. Just think about it hitting neighborhoods and children. We don't have to imagine war pig. We've been seeing it for 6 months. All right, here we go.
So many missiles being thrown on Israel, and barely no damage, and the people of Israel are safe. It's just because one reason: they didn't hit Israel, most of them. And just imagine how things would have looked if the missile that our defense secretary was showing to the world, defense minister Gallant was showing to the world. This is a 5-story size, 18 meters. This is huge missile. And think about it, falling in the middle of a city like Jerusalem. We're now in beautiful scenery of Jerusalem, but look how populated it is. Just think about it, hitting neighborhoods and people and children. It would have been a disaster. It's
unbelievable.
So this brings up a really interesting talking point, which I've been kind of championing for the last couple months. And it is that both Israel and Iran are client states of the United States with different relationships. And that the United States, through the Central Intelligence Agency, was involved in the coup of the Shah of Iran and replaced him with, of course, the Ayatollah Khomeini. And that has been the governing body in Iran ever since then, which is the Salafist, Wahhabist, kind of feudalist version of a theocracy, which is the one government that has the greatest amount of control, because they control two wings of the people, the religious wing and the governmental wing. And that was all set up by the United States, the CIA, and the major petroleum companies. Israel has a different relationship with the United States and feels like we're more of a client state of them. And nothing will happen to these two client states unless they determine it's going to happen. That's it. Iran had the pretext for sending all these supposed hypersonic missiles into Israel and pay them back, right? They didn't really do anything.
No, I know. There's certain rules of engagement that they've established with Iran.
So it's all theater. And if there's going to be a war, it'll be based on theater and not anything, brought out with any animus. Iran has a huge Jewish population. Huge. I think it's the second largest Jewish population.
Yeah, they're loyal to the state.
Right. So, I just wanted to bring that up because
I kind of get it. I I think that there's definitely rules of engagement. They've definitely set that up.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is called Psychopathic Reveal du Jour. And here we go down to the second interview, which is the mayor of Jerusalem. And she gets kind of raked over the coal by this Sky News reporter. This April 26th.
Yep. I'm queuing it up. Okay, so is there a video on this? I see.
Yeah, it's right there under.
Yeah, I see it. Here
it is.
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
These 283 corpses found in a mass grave at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis. The UN Human Rights Chief has said he is absolutely horrified. Who do you think those bodies are?
Probably terrorists, because the ratio of combatant to innocent that Israel has is unprecedented in modern warfare. We know we've killed about 15,000 terrorists. There was a terrible battle in those areas. So the chances
are... How do you think these people died?
In gun battles with Israel.
Why do you think some of the bodies were found with ties around their hands?
Well, because we probably arrested the terrorists.
And then killed them.
Well, I don't know if the terrorists fought back. I wasn't there. But all I can tell you is that this has been a very difficult urban warfare, that nobody on earth has experienced this type of warfare, where the terrorists are hiding in tunnels, where they're cowards because they won't face their enemy. They just leave innocent people up there whilst they hide in tunnels that are bigger than the London Underground. And they come out, they shoot. And it could be that many of them were shot and they were shooting in a battle. And it could be that there were bombs thrown by them and grenades. There could be a million different scenarios of why these were found. But remember, we're in the middle of a war.
I just to clarify for me, if you would, how do they fight back with their hands tied behind their backs?
Well, we don't know what they were doing before their hands were tied behind their backs, do we?
No, but if you've managed to cable tie them, they shouldn't subsequently find them dead, should we?
And maybe, again, we're just conjecturing. Maybe his friend threw a grenade, and then what happens? Maybe there was a missile. Maybe they threw a rocket, and then what happens? Again, this is conjecture. I wasn't there. You weren't there. We can't know. All I know is that our army has the highest...
Neither was Amnesty International, and they say there's...
Oh, too bad that ended. That was
okay.
Kind of...
Okay, let's flip right over to the bird. Right below that is the Birdoll interview. So let's just go right into that, because this is so good. How these guys, this is reveal.
Okay, I'm
the sickness. The sickness and the total disdain for human life and everything is just revealed here, and the making up of excuses and the covering up of their behavior, acting like, and they just.
Is it the one with the Suleiman Ahmed?
It is. Oh, it's okay. It's back over on the Empty Soul Psychopath one.
Okay.
Unraveling the Mind of a Psychopath. Behavior panel weighs in. And I'm going to kind of have you jump around because the way they present this, they kind of replay it. They come in, talk about it, they replay it. They stick in some kind of a promotion in the middle of it. So I'm going to have you jump around a little bit.
Okay, so I've got one with video capture of explosion. I've got the ambassador, which I just played, and then unraveling the mind of a psychopathic.
Yeah, start that right at the beginning.
Okay.
Now do the comparison of how this guy communicates with some of the things we just heard. This guy basically raped, sodomized, and tortured 6 young men in his home. Serial killer. Can you play it?
Yep.
The sound's not on.
In a sec. Buffering.
Hopefully you like him too, because we're going to talk about one today. And we're going to break down his body language and the things he says and what his behavior tells us and shows us. And you're going to have a better understanding of the way they think and the way they behave. Greg, tell us about the video we're going to watch.
I don't know how this guy thinks, but certainly his behavior is going to be interesting. Robert Andrew Burdella was an American serial killer who kidnapped, tortured, and murdered at least 6 young men after having forced them to endure periods of up to 6 weeks of captivity. We'll leave the rest of the details there. He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole for 1 first-degree murder, and later in prison he would plead guilty to another first and 4 charges of second-degree murder. Died of a heart attack 3 years after this interview. This interview is with a local Kansas City show, and he was known as the Kansas City Butcher.
Mr. Burdella, you're sitting here as a man who's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. You've confessed to murder of 6 young men in this city and crimes that horrified the city and much of the country. You've confessed to, in various degrees, felonious restraint, drugging people, sexually abusing them, torturing them, killing them, dismembering them. And until now, you've refused all interviews. So in light of all those facts, I have to ask you, why are you here? What is it you have to say to us? What is it you want to say about yourself in this case?
Well, I've had the media clamoring to get interviews with me. And after I made my last pleas, I wanted to get at least part of my side of it out. I found it very hard to find any way to do that in Kansas City. The media has so biased my case, portraying me as being non-human, and their motivation is no separate from the way I treated my victims. I treated them as something less than human, nothing more than a play toy or a play object. This is what the media has done to me. It's dehumanized me so that it can believe, along with the public, that things like human sacrifice, Satanism, demonic practices are more believable than me being a neighbor next door reached a point in his life where he could do monstrous acts. That's not the same thing as being a monster.
Your prosecutors, and I do want to quote this, when you came to plead, called your crimes wantonly vile, horrible.
Can I stop that for a second?
Sure.
What's interesting is that he admits to the fact that he treated them like subhumans. A sociopath would not even admit to it. That, to me, this is a very distinct difference. Like, he's oddly justifying his trying to reconcile his position in contrast with how he's been treated, but he is clearly aware of what he's done and how he's treated those people. That is a clear psychopath. A sociopath wouldn't even admit to it. Right?
Well, he kind of papers it over, as you'll hear.
Let's watch.
Or inhuman.
Well, when was this then?
I believe in documents associated with the Sheldon charges. To repeat that quote from the prosecution, these crimes were wantonly vile, horrible, or inhuman.
Okay. I think if you check with just about any attorney, you'll find that that is the standard clause that's used when they went to build a case for Capital One with the death penalty.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
All right, so this is fascinating. There's a little bit of self-soothing just on the edge of the paper there, right at the start. Little bit of adaptation there, repetitious, but not a lot. And when this kind of ream of crimes, horrific crimes, is told to him, really nothing happens. There's no reaction to it at all. Then we get these words, why are you here? What do you want to say about yourself? And then we get a little bit of adaptation in the chair, just that little bit of movement. So zero happening on any of these crimes, no reaction whatsoever. But when you talk about him and what have you come to say, now there's a little bit of movement, little bit of excitement. So we know what he's there for. He's there for himself. There's a complete reversal happens here. He becomes the victim. He's a victim of the media, and the media he's portraying now as psychopathic, sensationalist motivations, and he's got disdain for that. He turns up one side of his mouth. So he's put himself in the position of the victim. He's put the media in the position of the psychopath, sensationalist. He says, I'm just a next door neighbor who reached a point he could do monstrous acts. So he's not saying he's a monster. He's not a monster at all. He's just your next door neighbor that got into a situation, reached a point whereby he could do monstrous acts. Not a monster, but did monstrous acts. So he's saying he won't be defined by his actions. The media characterizes people by their actions. You know, character is action. He's saying, no, my character is going to be whatever PR I'm now going to try and get away with at the moment. Reality for him is exactly what he's going to try and get away with. And so he's going to challenge our absolute perceptions about him. If we're going to be absolute and go, okay, so you're a monster, you're a psychopath, he's there to challenge that today. And so what I'd like to do in return for that, because it's quite a postmodern attitude I think he's going to have with us there. It's a little early. It's early days of postmodernism at this date here, but he's out of the gate right away. He's going to challenge our perception. So from now on, I'm going to look at these videos and give you a little bit of a clue how you can untangle yourself from a postmodernist and postmodern rhetoric that's really going to come out of this guy's mouth today. Should be fascinating. I'm going to love this. Chase, what do you got on this one?
Today's video is sponsored by Aura. I'm excited for this because I've been using this. Feels a focus on himself and how it perceives this treatment by other people, especially the media, and his concern over being portrayed as non-human. I think suggests a very strong egocentric perspective where his own view is paramount to other people's perceptions. But his lack of remorse or acknowledgement of the victim's suffering and stuff points to some pretty psychopathic traits. Then he does rationalizing and minimizing. He attempts to rationalize all this because there's a disconnect between someone who can commit these acts and being a monster. If you listen close enough, you're going to hear somebody's mental rationalization methodology leak out in their language anytime that you have a conversation like this. But his disgust with the media is clear on his face. And if I was that reporter, I would dig into that, not for any kind of like confession or anything, just to make it an interesting interview.
So the woman, the mayor of Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, whoever she was denying that the things had even happened.
Yeah, she's gaslighting. Yeah,
he at least he admits that he committed the monstrous acts.
He does, but the thing is he gaslights it. In the next clip, you'll see it again.
I have no doubt, but there's a little bit of a difference. Like she's just denying everything.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, she was really weird. I mean, these Israelis are really gone.
She must have used the word "could" at least half a dozen times. Well, it could have been. It could have been. It could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been.
to get some more. And I'd probably try to piss him off. That's what I'd try to do. Scott, what do you got?
Yeah, and that'd be easy because he's ready to go the whole day. It's a predator, man. This little animal sitting there, and he's already. You're right. He's always got that head down. The whole thing. We're seeing that predatory behavior happen already because this guy's pushing against his ego. It's classic, man. This is awesome. Now, I'm the guy that always says you can't spot a psychopath because you have to. It takes up to 6 months to a year sometimes to diagnose one properly through. Be it fMRI studies or whatever it's going to be. But I would put everything I have on this guy being a psychopath. It didn't take, when Greg sent me this video and said, what do you think about this? I was like, yeah, man, we got to do this guy. This is awesome. This is unbelievable. So I think we're seeing the perfect textbook case of a clinical psychopath. Now, to clear a couple things up, all psychopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are psychopaths. So what we're seeing here is this through the roof ego happening as it is with the clinical narcissist.
Like Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro's
so this guy, narcissist. So everything is as it should be. Just so you all know, they make fun of me when I say everything is as it should be, because I'm saying when something looks normal for that, for example, this guy, for a psychopath, everything is as it should be. Now, I've stopped saying that now. Y'all have shut me down on that. So I'm not going to.
Everything is as it should be.
But anyway, so let's go over like a couple little things that we're going to see for sure in a psychopath, or the behaviors that we associate with someone who's been diagnosed with it as a psychopath. When he says, I've had media clamoring, well, that's the first thing out of his mouth, really. So that's his ego saying, man, I've got so much going on. These guys are into me for what, because I'm a great guy, or I'm special, I'm different. And, that's what's happening. I'm famous now. This is what I've done has made me famous. And then he turns it around and he makes himself the victim. He says, when he starts talking about how he used these people, well, we'll get to that in a few minutes. But he makes himself the victim that the media has turned him into the victim. And then we see a lot, the classic contempt facial expression. Now, there are more than one expressions that are asymmetric, but one of the only universal facial expression is contempt, and that's when you see that lip go up like that. This guy's happens so slow and so clean and so clear. Even the cameraman zooms in on him as he's going. You can see that thing raise up, and it's just like, you got to be kidding me. So this is perfect. The camera guy maybe knew what it was, maybe he didn't, but having seen it enough to say, wow, let me get some of this, that's a pretty big deal. That's a lot of contempt going on there. And contempt is peppered throughout this whole interview, which I thought was fascinating, because it's one of the only feelings that he feels of emotion is anger and contempt. So I think that's a classic example. If you want to show somebody what contempt looks like, use that as an example. And then when he says that, and this happens when he says their motivation. Look right after when he says their motivation, it zooms in. There it is. I don't think you can find a better example of that anywhere. Then he goes on to describe how horrific these crimes are. Then, as he's talking about that, he talks about how he saw them as toys, and he saw them as playthings, and he saw them as things that didn't mean anything because he was just playing with them. That's the way psychopaths see people. They look at them like bugs or a video game. They mean nothing to them, no more than you would a can or a pen or anything else. They don't see anything, any kind
war
of
is war.
Attachment to that thing.
War is war.
But this is a psychopath describing the way psychopaths see the world and the way they see other people and their victims. I think this is awesome as far as getting into the mind of one of those and seeing how it thinks and seeing how it approaches the world. So, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, when little kids color outside the lines, there's two reasons they could do that. Three. One, they don't have the dexterity to do it. Two, they're being creative. Or three, they don't even understand the lines have any value. Ding, ding, ding. As we watch this guy has no idea that normal human beings have compassion for other human beings or that. Because the only thing that matters, to your point, you've said it over and over and over, you showed contempt, you showed all this, is him. And if you don't believe that, the very first part, watch him as he's waiting to get his turn, and then he bolts in and his head does that wobble. We could say the wobble is uncertainty. I think it's contained emotion. And I think the only emotions this guy has, like you said, are negative ones: anger, frustration. I think that as you pay attention, and we talk all the time about people not understanding or not connecting, this is the guy. When he says things, watch him with that jaw work and the intake breath as he says something about his side. He does something we classically don't see in most men. He does kind of a head whip around as he makes a point. All that contempt, that disgust, all those things rising every time he brings something up. When he gets down to this human sacrifice and sex Satanism piece, watch his taffy pulling with his eyes to look and see if you're paying attention as he moves his head and then closes his eyes and blocks. I think it's a control thing. I think if you were dealing with this guy, you're both dancing all over this one. I think if you poked him very hard, you'd get a really hard reaction. But I think he's probably a powerless person who does some kind of show of power until he runs up against somebody who pushes back. This guy's not going to be the guy. Guy may push his buttons a little. And Chase, we all know that if you're in an interrogation room and you really want to get a guy to come apart and lose his composure, that's the only time you do it, really, because it's not how you get people into a position of trust, but it does work to have a person lose control. Once you lose control, then you can start pushing their buttons.
Okay,
there's actually a couple of other things he's indignant at.
They're gonna replay the clip. We don't need to see it again. Just go ahead and skip forward to the second clip.
On your page.
Well, on this, what we're watching.
Oh, okay.
So they do a replay. I don't know why they do that. So there's, see, it says replay. Just
Right.
go until
You want to go over what they just talked about. Oops.
Yeah, to the next interview. Oh, that's replay again, huh? That's weird. Okay, so I have to back up. It must have been.
I don't think this is the replay.
He's got condemning withdrawal of his lips and narrowing of his eyes. And that's the same disdain. If you go watch the thing we did on Dr. Phil with Tarek, that's exactly what I looked at. I'm like, no, all I see is liar,
Okay,
liar.
we can play we can do the replay because they're going over the second part.
Right here. I think this is
favorite people we've ever watched because he has.
So they will tend to go, no, you can't joke around this.
So when he's responding,
yeah, the way they order this
he
is really
says
weird.
institution, not prison. Who's a true clinical narcissist? Well, you probably may not know the clinical one, but you'll know a narcissist. Ask them what the biggest mistake is they've ever made. What's the most wrong they've done? So when he's asked, how did he feel about when he heard about that parody song, which I'm sure was just, can you imagine how atrocious that would have been anyway? Just ugh. How do you feel about that? How did that make you feel when you learned there's a parody song about you? He didn't answer that question at all. He starts talking about how the families of the victims felt.
There it is.
You know why? Because he doesn't know what feelings are. He doesn't understand that.
Really
It goes back to my sweet and sour.
The media apparently tries to describe them as just sheets of paper. They're notes.
How did you feel when you learned that not long after your arrest, the local radio stations, 2 of them at least, were running a Bob Berdella parody song and were asking people to come to parties wearing dog collars?
Well, I think the newspaper article reported that even the families of the victims were upset by the song. I have never had a chance to hear the song. I had also been told when I first came into jail that the Fox radio station had run a promo giving prizes to their listeners if they showed up at the station in a dog collar and with a leash on. The people here in the institution, the correctional officers, the caseworker, even the psychiatrist, were, I think, surprised to find out that upset me.
And it did upset you.
Very much so.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
So now he's got this whole thing going where he's got condemning withdrawal of his lips and narrowing of his eyes. And that's the same disdain. If you go watch the thing we did on Dr. Phil with Tarek, that's exactly what I looked at. I'm like, no, all I see is liar, liar, liar. And then he backs away and his respiration increases. And he does some kind of an adapter we can't see down in his arms. And we say an adapter is releasing nervous energy of some kind. Can't tell why or what. But what we do show is that he's starting to show some kind of feeling and some kind of real emotion about his feelings being hurt. Again, negative things We know from the studies that psychopaths' pupils dilate for negative things and don't for positive things, for example. So it might be a good indicator. I'd love to see his pupils a little closer. And that lip compression in this case, we talk about that being withheld information. In many cases, it's the single piece of information is some emotional thing. And I think that's what we're seeing is him containing his emotion. And then I love the fact he crowdsources normal. These people were upset and so was I. And the people were surprised I was upset. Well, you're upset because they're making fun of you, not because you killed people and not because you did horrific acts. Those other people are upset for different reasons. You weird little guy who can't see past that. This is one of my least favorite people we've ever watched because he has no compassion for anything he's done and no remorse. I don't care what words he uses. His body does not show remorse in any capacity.
When you went down the Ted Bundy rabbit hole, because you spent a lot of time, we talked about this last time, going through that and hit you in a weird personal way. Did you notice that through Bundy's either confessions or writing, that as he was committing these crimes, that he had some kind of remorse or some kind of emotional reaction? Like, did you notice that?
Oh, at the very, very end, when they're about ready to execute him, he kind of did. He sort of became a little bit that way, but he ran a long string where he's just totally superficial, denied it for a long time. He just liked to pull the wool over people's eyes. That's what he was all about.
There was this one incident, I think it happened in Florida, and I think you're probably familiar with it. And I think he had just killed somebody and was, I think, either in the act or was about to kill another person. You know what I'm talking about?
Not exactly. He's talking about the sorority.
Yeah.
Where he had to kind of make a break for it because somebody was coming in.
Yes. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, he got into his emotions around that and actually talked about it from not that it was great or anything, but he was, I think, somewhat self-aware of his emotional state while he was doing these things.
He just struck me as a very dead soul.
Yeah.
That's the other feature. And this guy we're watching right now is the same way. Now, Ted was a little slicker, very superficial, and, he's a little more handsome and had a little better delivery, a little more articulate. But if you listen to the Ted Bundy tapes on Netflix, he's just always redirecting the attention someplace else. He never really circles in about what a true monster he was. He talks about his childhood, acts like he's trying to give some hints of maybe why he's the way he was. I mean, he was awful. His behavior was really awful.
So let's circle back to, the topic at hand, which is what's happening in Israel, what's happening across America, and this idea. And we could quibble on the definition between sociopath or psychopath, but at the end of the day, both of those states represent a type of inhuman behavior. And it feels like it's going viral, right? It feels like it's going viral. And there's just an incredible amount of justification that
mostly around victimhood, that I'm the victim.
Well, there's that, and there's the justification of the victim, right? So when you look at these people that have voted yes on this anti-Semitism bill, right, they're justifying the victimhood and the victimization. So it's not just the so-called victims themselves.
I see them as just totally corrupt people.
They are corrupt, but they are siding with the victims. And in this regard, this is where I think, whether you want to call it sociopathy or psychopathy, it becomes viral.
Yeah, but see, the people that passing this legislation, bringing out the police, whatever they're doing, they're just bootlickers, and the Zog system is bringing brute force. We don't even really know how much brute force has been brought against them.
Let me. I want to bring this up. It's statistics of who has received what from APAC. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to bring this in the conversation.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on those people speaking,
because
they're very scripted. They just read off of a script because they're not given the authority to be creative and actually speak from the heart.
So this is a super slush fund. So what they do is they have like a super PAC, and a super PAC is so PAC stands for Political Action Committee, and a super PAC is like a political action committee on steroids. And if you donate through a super PAC, the amount of donations that you can receive far exceeds what you can through a PAC. It's like a workaround. And look at how much, and this is coming from APAC, and this is all FEC stuff. And this is recent. This is yesterday, by the way. This is how recent it is. So this guy George Latimer received $1,317,454 for his campaign. That's a lot of money. And again, I'm not sure how much people understand about campaign money. You don't have to pay it back. So if George Latimer spent $500,000 on ads and flyers and all the things that you need to run a quote unquote successful campaign, he's got $800,000 left in his pocket. So I want to go down here a little bit, and you're going to find Mike Johnson for Louisiana. And Mike Johnson has received $311,031. That was towards his campaign.
Yeah. So in his case, though, he's been given an important job, Speaker of the House.
Well,
they wouldn't have gotten any other way.
Look who's right below him. Kevin McCarthy, the guy he replaced.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep.
So Mike Johnson.
Tweedledee, Tweedledum.
The first thing that Mike Johnson said, the first words out of his mouth were, the first thing I'm going to do as Speaker of the House is pass a bill to support our great friends in Israel. And it's long overdue, right? Those were the first words. Well, I wonder why. Right? And this guy, he is the one, he didn't. So there's this guy, what's his name? Warner, or the guy from New York who put this thing together. But it was Mike Johnson who tabled the bill in Congress. He was the one. So this guy from New York, put it together with the help of this other group, which is connected to some Holocaust group, right? So he's getting money from them.
Yeah, and they actually use the language. They literally let a foreign government write the language of the anti-Semitism bill.
Right. Well, Abe Foxman originally wrote the hate crime language. It was Abe Foxman. He wrote the language for the hate crime bill, which passed back in 2010. And it's like, oh, now things aren't just a crime; they're a hate crime.
Yeah. If anybody can't see this, I just say shame on you. This is what you notice how they just keep ratcheting it up, getting more brute force. And now they're going to make this discussion we're having right here about these campaign contributions, anti-Semitism. We're having an anti-Semitic conversation according to the definition of this ridiculous law.
Right.
There's another one coming that's even worse. It refers to disparaging comments against Jews.
Hold
so
on
you can't
one
say anything. You can't say anything mean. You can't just put up a clip of a bunch of old terrorists cackling about raping women or murdering people. That's disparaging. This is a bad world that we're going into, folks. And this is completely unchecked. And like I say, that seems like the only one people really standing up to him are 120-pound liberal arts majors and soy boys.
Well,
these so-called patriots that believe in the First Amendment.
So so they did a breakdown of who was arrested at UT, and they had 77 people that were arrested. 40 of them weren't students. So one of the things, and this is I throw this out there because I think people have to understand that both sides of this quote unquote fiery debate have been infiltrated. And on the soy boy and the protester, and I've seen legitimate students, and there's a profile of the person that you're talking about, Russ, which is legit. And I've seen them, and I watch a lot of live streams, and they're being interviewed, and they're not professional protesters.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that I participated in some of these Vietnam War protests as a student, and I'm sure there were infiltrators around. Sure. But having lived through that, I also know a hell of a lot of students were involved in this.
Right. I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
And the causa proxima is the same thing. Genocide and Zog, regardless of who's protesting, whether there's hired protesters. I mean, maybe Iran and Russia are putting money into this. It's the United States is very vulnerable because they've got this ridiculous government in place. So it makes us very vulnerable to people pushing our buttons, bringing in infiltrators. Yes, if it was a stronger country, it wouldn't matter. It was a more just country, it wouldn't matter as much. There's so much injustice, and this younger generation is very angry at the United States. Well, their lives aren't so good. They're suffering from inflation. They can't really buy houses. They work 3 Starbucks jobs. They don't live good lives. All the wealth is concentrated in boomers, in the boomer generation. So I feel their pain and they're angry, and it's just set up a scenario where they can be exploited and pushed around, definitely, and probably some bad elements will get a hold of them and push them in some bad directions. Yeah. But whose fault is it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I say bring them. I say bring it down. Let them do their thing. I fully support them. I'm not second guessing this movement.
Well, I support the right to freely assemble. I support the right to free speech, and they have a right to do that.
Well, they're also right about the issues that they're protesting about.
I agree with you on the issue. This is an interesting.
But you're right. You're right. It can be. They can kind of slice the salami and get the leadership all of a sudden becomes some bad actors.
Yes,
that can happen.
Yes,
but it's not the fault of the protesters.
But this is what happens when you set chaos in motion and you put bad actors on both sides.
Yes.
I wanted to bring this up. This is a really interesting breakdown of who received what from AIPAC. And there's this one candidate that is really kind of, she typifies what a person receives, why they receive it, and the outcome. All right, so you can look at this. Like, this is Chuck Schumer gets $546,000 from AIPAC. Susan Collins, $826,000. These are all people that are pro one state solution. We'll just use that terminology, one state solution.
And also a number of them are key committee members.
Yes.
And we talked about Menendez in our last show, what he was all about. So it's a capture, to sit around and act like you're being anti-Semitic because you're saying there's a Zog capture of the government. Really? Really? You're not paying any attention.
That's right. So
where's this getting us? It's leading us into war. It's leading us into conflict. It's destroyed the image of the United States in the world, particularly in the global South, because there's a big global reaction against all this stuff. It's not just in some vacuum, and they're trying to play tricks like putting the protesters' mugshots up there and mocking them with one-liners. People got to really be aware of that.
So I wanted to focus on this one person, Haley Stevens.
Don't know who she is.
Well, you're going to find out. Haley Stevens received $5.4 million from AIPAC. So why did Haley Stevens receive that much money? Well, there's a reason why. I'm going to get into this right here. Some groups mobilized against representatives who supported Palestinian statehood. In 2022, AIPAC supported the ouster of the former representative, Andy Levin. This is in Michigan. This is Haley Stevens' district. Former Representative Andy Levin, a Jewish progressive and self-described Zionist, in part over his proposed bill calling for a two-state solution, an end to Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories. So Andy Levin checks some boxes here. Number one, he's Jewish. Number two, he's a progressive. Number three, he's a Zionist. So he's a progressive Zionist Jew. The only thing he's missing is, maybe he's gay. I don't know. Right, but he's checking all the boxes.
Yeah, but he took the wrong issue. He's going to this
the wrong issue.
Yeah, right.
So let me just go down this a little bit further. Ahead of Levin's primary, AIPAC's former president sent out a fundraising pitch calling Levin's race against centrist Representative Haley Stevens a rare opportunity to defeat arguably the most corrosive member of Congress to the U.S.-Israel relationship. Well, he's corrosive because he's Jewish, and he wants a different kind of solution to having the one-state solution. That's how they view him. Like would a Christian be less corrosive? Maybe a little less because he's being Jewish and a progressive and a self-described Zionist. He might have some sway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he's just too much over the target. They don't even want him involved at all in any of this stuff.
Right.
Go sit on another committee somewhere, Levin.
Well, it's not even another committee. It's like hit the road, Jack.
Hit the road, or we'll put you on the agriculture committee and shut your mouth. That type of thing. Exactly.
The race turned into a battle between conservative and liberal donor groups. Donors poured nearly $5.4 million into backing Stevens.
Yeah, because they had to defeat probably an entrenched incumbent. That takes a lot of money.
He got $700,000.
Yep. Interestingly, there's a candidate running against Debbie Wasserman. That's a Jewish progressive. That's a two-state solution. I actually listened to her in an interview. She's sharp.
He won't stand a chance.
Well, they kind of redistrict the district. And I don't know, she might give a good challenge. But yeah, you're probably right. More of my wishful thinking. She's a good candidate.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She got more money than Mike Johnson. It's a money game.
They redistrict her district and move sort of the wealthy Jewish neighborhoods into a new district. And it kind of favors this challenger. And she's raising quite a bit of money. She's raising money. She's got backers because she supports the Palestinians and she's kind of pro-Palestinian. There's a fairly large Muslim community down there.
She might have a chance.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to follow this one because she's a strong candidate. I see Rick Wiles, the minister, the pastor, is challenging Brian Mast.
Brian Mast, yeah.
Well, I mean, and that guy wears an Israeli IDF uniform to Congress. I mean, that's just a blatant example of what we're talking about.
It's so weird. It's so weird. You know, if people aren't familiar with Brian Mast, he served in the U.S. military and lost both legs. So he's an amputee, double amputee, and he walks around with these blades. And so he's a veteran, and, you know, veterans automatically, you know, get this kind of unconditional love from Americans, right? It's like, thank you for serving. And then he's a double amputee. So now he's got this other sort of cred, like, oh, not only were you a veteran, but man, you really took a couple for the team there, right? So it's really hard to criticize somebody like that.
Yeah.
And now he's walking around with an IDF uniform. I'm not even sure he served in the IDF. I went through.
He says very strident things. He says a lot of this nasty psychopathic shit we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, he didn't even serve in the IDF. It's like some kind of military cosplay or something.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of cosplay going on, especially from the conservative right in this thing.
So my friend Misaki sent me something, and I want to put it on the table. I want to throw it out there, put it on the table, and I wonder if I'll be able to just do this. Hold on, because I know that these images and text, you have to convert them. Hold on a second. Let me see. All right, it's the whole screen, but let me see if we can find it here. Let me make it bigger. You don't see my trash on my screen. So this guy has a really interesting take here. Right-wing Jews promote wars that displace Muslims from their native lands. Left-wing Jews open Western borders to said displaced Muslims. Result, Israeli dominance in the Mideast while lowering the risk of nationalism manifesting in Western nations. Perfect synergy. It's like, wow. If you think about it, that's really kind of what's happening. Have the wars, displace the people, open the borders, get rid of them, and then dilute any kind of Western or nationalist identity in this country or even in Europe.
Well, now they're even proposing, sort of like who to thunk, but now Biden is working on bringing a bunch of these Palestinians that they're going to ethically cleanse to the United States.
That's
and I kind of made I made the comment, might as well. That way we'll get some really hardcore anti-Zionist in the American politics and culture.
So this is what Alex Jones says. Biden has officially announced a plan to bring at least 1 million Gazan refugees to the United States.
They'll be stridently anti-Zionist. You know, if the Zog is paying attention, they wouldn't do that.
I think that share. Where am I? Where did I go? Am I just in the black? Can you see me at all, Russ?
Yeah. You look like you're kind of frozen though.
Let me do this. Let me just jump out of here real quick. Don't go away. Entertain the troops for a minute. I'll be right back. So it's like I have to have a digital colonic once a show.
Did you see the one about the Jewish gal at Northwestern going in there and calling the police on these protesters? You see that one?
Oh, the Karen.
Yeah, play that in case people haven't seen that one.
Okay.
I've got it in the.
Yeah. After we play this, I want to ask you a question after we play this.
But anyway, her whole tone is that she says, "I'm a Jewish American woman," as if though that gives her special consideration. And she just goes right into this group. They're surrounding me. I need help.
Give me 1 second. Is it in the messages with me and you?
Yeah, April 28th. I sent it. The date on it.
Okay.
Kind of earlier.
Maybe you go back in time. I have April 26th, April 29th. Hold on.
Then here's a comment, Mossad commentary. Facial recognition can determine whether you participated in the pro-Hamas protest at the universities. Your jobs and your degrees will be worthless. Your hiring opportunities will be limited. At the time I saw this, 2.6 million people. This reached 2.6 million people. That's a threat. That's brute force.
Hello, police. I'm hearing. No, I don't expect help. Police, can you connect me to?
Oh, this is satire. That's okay. We can watch this too. This is satirical.
They're surrounding me. They won't let me leave.
Literally, no one is surrounding her.
I'm in great danger. There's a
No one cares,
full of
bitch.
people wearing keffiyehs that are surrounding me. Why am I on the campus?
She doesn't even go here.
Well, I'm not a student, but I'm on the campus because that's where the terrorism is. My dog is having a panic attack. No, they're surrounding me. 6, 7, 8, 10, 40, 60, 90. There's a guy with a weapon, a bicycle helmet behind me. Please hurry.
I have a pedicure of 5.
Did I mention that I'm white? I'm a white woman.
No one is
Send
keeping
help
them
soon.
here. She's free to leave.
Yeah, they're chanting genocidal slogans.
Okay, that's a satire.
It's funny that the people who are commenting on that don't understand that it's a satire.
Yeah, because there was a real incident before that she's basing that off of.
All right, let me see if I can find it.
And then she says, "I'm a white woman." That's not what she said. She says, "I'm a Jewish American woman." So there they go, kind of pointing the fingers at whites, making whites in general responsible for this behavior, which is another trick.
Let's see. Yeah. Is it before the mugshots?
No, it's way up. It's further up the page.
Is it before Richie Torres?
Above that.
I found it.
Richie Torres is compromised, funded by foreign interest, $1.2 million in contributions from AIPAC and Israel lobby, and he's the guy that sponsored the anti-Semitic bill. He did a bill that will create anti-Semitism monitors at colleges. Meanwhile, the Mossad is weighing in, saying we can facially recognize you. So they're doing a big crackdown.
Not in harm's way. Nobody is going to hurt them. Nobody is going to attack them. This person is not in harm's way.
They are free to leave.
Nobody is going to hurt them. Nobody is going to attack them. This person is not in harm's way.
Yes, they're right in front of me right now. They're putting signs.
This person is not in harm's way.
I need funds, genocide. I need help. I know that, but they're surrounding me. They won't let me move.
No, you are free to move. You are free to move. She is free to move.
You are free to move. You are free to move.
She's free to move. She's free to leave. She is free to leave. No one is surrounding her.
Nobody is surrounding you.
She is free to leave.
You are free to leave.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's Rush University. These are students. They're surrounding me. I can take a picture.
She's free to leave. No one is surrounding her.
No one is surrounding her.
No one is surrounding her.
I'm just walking my dog. I need help.
She's free to leave.
I'm a Jewish American. I need help.
Yeah, she does need help.
This is against the law, what she's doing. She could create a SWAT in this kind of environment. A SWAT team could come in.
Well, this is a
This
Jussie.
is serious. This is a serious crime that she's committing here.
It's a Jussie Smollett moment.
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot of everybody's got a lot of memes and mileage out of it.
Well, I mean, she's doing basically the same thing that Jussie Smollett did.
Yeah, not quite the drama that he put into it, but still, it's dangerous. It's just not smart.
No, it's not smart. I have weird thoughts sometimes. Where do you think this is going? I have an idea, but where do you think this is going, and how is all this going to turn out?
Just brute force. They're not letting up on this behavior. You know, we've kind of started. It's been escalating more and more and more. They're losing the war. They're desperate. The whole political situation in the United States is turning against them. The whole world is turning against them, and they're like fucking psychopaths, just lashing out, like playing the victimhood stance, showing up in like this lady, engaging in even more odd behavior. So just multiply that. You know, a lot of people are going to get hurt, and probably it's going to turn to violence and probably some kind of a false flag. That's kind of where I think it goes next.
Yeah, I think it has to go. I think it has to get into a false flag situation to amplify the volume and to create more of that Hegelian dialectic, right? Like they need, but I don't think it's going to work. I don't think this thing is going to work. It's like the toothpaste is out of the bottle. It's out of the tube. And there are too many people at this point who are quote unquote noticing. And look, it's not going to make our lives any easier, but we're at a real nexus point with all of this. Like this is a really important moment in American and human history, because we're being given an opportunity. And look, I'm just going to try to be hermetic about this. Let's take Israel off the table. Let's take Jew off the table. We're being given an opportunity to stare at evil. We're being given an opportunity to stare at evil. This is evil, right? Creating conditions of suffering and then creating conditions of taking on the role of the victim who's created suffering and then victimizing others so that you can continue your role in the suffering. It's evil. I don't care what country or what culture is perpetuating it. And we haven't seen anything quite like this in my memory. You're a little bit older than me. Have you seen anything like this before?
Not to this brute force, not to this level of brute force. But, you know, we're kind of in a new era, you know, the internet era and Twitter and a lot of this stuff is getting exposed and gets out there. TikTok, that's why they had to take TikTok down.
Well, they haven't yet, but they want to.
Yeah, because it's exposing of this behavior. It gets out.
You got a bunch of base Gen Z kids who don't give a shit. And this gets to your point that you brought up earlier, which I thought was a great point, in that, you know, the American youth has absolutely no shot at the American dream.
Yeah, and nothing to lose. Yep.
Nothing to lose whatsoever.
Yep. And so you might as well be a hero.
Well, you may as well just make a stand on your own terms.
We got to watch. Before we cut off, we got to watch this UCLA encampment scene a little bit. I was watching that. It was going on at 3:00 in the morning, and I had the TV on, and they were showing it live because it's midday here. Let's take a look at that one.
That's where the ruffians come in, right?
No, it's after the ruffians left. You got to see how battened down these guys are. It does look kind of organized, I got to admit. It does not look. It says UCLA campus protest, police move in. Begin so YouTube.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, this looks pretty organized. They must have gone to someplace to get all. They got bike racks. They've got kind of walled in. And I got to say that in this instance, it was the California Highway Patrol that they brought in.
Yeah,
they were pretty cool. They were pretty professional about this whole thing. They ended up arresting about 200 of them, but it didn't get violent or anything. And the protesters, when they finally kind of corralled them and took down their encampment walls, pretty much just surrendered.
Hold on one sec.
But this one's pretty good because it shows the behavior of the police being fairly restrained. But, in places like Texas, they weren't. They were brutal.
Oh, no, they were brutal. Is it on your Twitter feed or is it on the site?
It's have it on your DM.
Okay. All right. So I'm going backwards. Bottom, you've got Ben Shapiro. Then you've got Ben Netanyahu. Then you have
right above, kind of above in there. Keep going. You're pretty close.
Deadly Massacres. Lester Holt. Facebook employee.
Yeah, Lester Holt's new NBC News has done an investigation that said that 7 deadly air strikes. They found that Palestinians were killed in areas of southern Gaza that the Israeli military had explicitly designated as safe zones. So even NBC News is starting to report on this stuff, like about 7 months too late.
So in the feed, I'm at Compromise Richie Taurus. Is it above that?
Below that.
Okay.
Yeah, that stuff's really scattered. Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. Orwell Huxley's Ghost. No. I've got the mugshots. Where is it in relation to the mugshots?
Well above Holtz, above the NBC story.
Okay.
2 above that. Just 2 above that. 2 slots above the NBC News story.
Okay.
See it?
Yes.
UCLA campus protest.
It was kind of hidden.
This is 3:00 in the morning in Los Angeles.
Let me jump over to YouTube. Okay.
So we can make some observations. Admittedly, these protests do look pretty organized. So what does that tell you? That they probably are financed.
Again, they've got, if you pan this way, Sam, we're here with Sam Dubin, and you can see they've got a long way to go to tear down the entire barricade. But what they have been doing is tossing the trash can, some of those cans, and you can see above there one of the protesters. They do have masks.
But the protesters are kind of careful not to hit the police.
Again,
they're kind of putting on a facade a little bit. Those are supposed to be rubber bullets.
This is so dangerous.
Yeah.
Again, they're shooting rubber bullets, but I can tell you from doing stories about rubber bullets, they are extremely painful. If they hit your leg, your arm, they could break your arm. But they're trying to get.
People have died via rubber bullets, by the way.
Yeah.
Into this encampment to get everyone arrested and out of this encampment. Again, the students were warned about this over and over. We were near the encampment.
The students are shining these lights in their face, in the police's face, trying to blind them.
Letting them know what was going to happen, and they had time to leave, avoid this type of situation. And as far as we know, almost everyone's safe. Oh. That was the big concern.
This is a war.
Potentially.
That's correct. That was the biggest concern because the crowd, we were talking about possibly more than 1,000.
These are barricades that they've built.
Standing outside, and they were ready to rush in. They were very prepared for that. They talked about it. But of course, it took so many hours that by the time this happened, many of the people that were outside, the supporters of the pro-Palestinian protesters, they ended up leaving. There are still some people out there, but so far I'm looking behind me and no one has come into this area. There are LAPD officers on that side as well. They could be holding the line, but right now, all of the action that's taking place, you're watching it right now. That is CHP that is going in. They're breaking down the barriers.
There's a lot of Soros money in the protests.
That's what they say. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. He just likes to make trouble.
And if you look at, and I did this on my show, if you look at where the protests were at the various campuses, those are areas where Soros judges have been basically installed. So there's a catch and release program.
Is that what's going on? They're just hauling them off the campus and letting them go.
That's right.
Make an appearance and
yeah.
Well, I think that's good.
Well, it keeps. I mean, look, I just feel like again, a lot of this is staged and AstroTurf. You're going to get probably about, I don't know, maybe 70% of the protesters being students, and another 30% not students. That's my sense. Even though in that when they arrested the 70 plus kids in Austin, it was more like 40-30. Like 40 of the people arrested weren't even students, and 30 were. So it was over half. And I've seen interviews. I watched this guy, Portland Andy, and he'll have like 6 different streams going on at one time. And so it's kind of hard to track, but if you like sort of pay attention and lose focus simultaneously, you can do it. And I would see various interviews with people, and somebody would interview somebody, and they would ask, "Well, do you go to school here?" "No, I don't, but I wanted to show solidarity." Like there's a lot of that.
That's acceptable.
And I would say yes. I was going to say yeah, it's acceptable, and I think that there are pros that are embedded on both sides.
But like I see a comment over here. I just wanted to comment. So Kabuki Theater says most of them can't find Palestine on a map. Bullshit. These people know where they know the story. They're paying attention.
So I would say yes. They probably could. I would say they could probably find Palestine on a map. Now, when you ask them, and I've seen interviews, you ask them, why are you protesting? And they'll kind of go down the list and they'll say, well, there's this and that, but ultimately we want Israel, we want the school to divest any kind of financial position they have with Israel. And then they'll ask, well, do you know what those positions are or who they're invested with? And none of them can answer the next level of that question.
Okay, so that's kind of a scripted answer then, right?
Right. So, and I would say it's kind of naive. Like, I think that they're there because they know that there's injustice and that they know that there's a fiduciary relationship going on between the schools and Israel, but they can't get to the next level and the next layer. So, well, yeah, this school has a no-load fund with Rand, or this school has a huge amount of money invested in Home Depot. And Home Depot does a lot of business with Israel. Bernie Marcus owns Home. If they could go to the next level, be like, wow, now we're having a real dialogue about what's going on here. But when that happens, they lose a little bit of legitimacy. And maybe it's because they're young.
Well, the thing the boycott and divestment thing really that hurts the Jewish and Israel cause. Well, they're really sensitive to it.
It brought South Africa to its knees.
Yeah, exactly. So if that ever got off the ground, and I think Israel's, like I've been saying, is already in big trouble. So they don't want that to get out of the bag, and that's why there's so much brute force coming to play.
Yeah, I mean, they have a vested interest in keeping those. I mean, when you think about it, I'm gonna stop sharing this. When you think about it, and I did a breakdown of this on my show, how much money these universities get? They get a lot of money, right? They get money from the government.
They get a lot of Jewish donors, some of them.
Well, Bob Kraft decided, well, I'm not going to donate to Columbia anymore. Well, Bob, you've been donating to Columbia for, a long enough period of time to create the student class that is now doing this, you dumb shit. I mean, you were donating to Columbia to create the student class
and to create the whole woke movement.
Well, exactly. Like you look the other way in 2020.
Now it's coming back to roost.
Now all of a sudden it's a big fucking deal.
Yep, now it's coming back to roost.
So these schools get a shit ton of money from people like Bob Kraft, the United States government, the states that they're in, not to mention all the research money that goes into colleges. There's a shit ton of research money that goes into colleges.
The comments tonight are really interesting. People are getting engaged in this stuff. It's kind of split.
Well, I think
there's a lot of staged accusations going on, and I kind of get that. I think there is some of that, but there's also other people saying, what's so hard to understand about fighting against genocide and war? That's pretty fundamental too.
I don't think these two things are mutually exclusive. And I think that's where we have to go, right? Because we got to get beyond this duality shit. Right? Because we're, on the one hand, yes, we understand these people are being fucked over. And we also understand that there's this group that clearly has a whole lot of muscle and is influencing policy in many different parts of the world, right? So these are the facts that we have to understand.
And this is a chance to break that power.
I agree, but I feel like we have to get out of the binary mode. It's like, can we hold these positions and at the same time understand that what's going on here is also part of creating like the problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah.
For instance, if they just let these kids protest on the campus and didn't really do anything about it, how long do you think they would actually do it for? Right? If it's hot, it's summertime, they might go away. Or maybe the professionals.
Yeah, everybody likes attention, don't they?
Right. I feel like we have to, this is just me, but we have to take into account that these are real issues and that there are also actors in the mix.
Yeah, I can accept that theory. And you got to really watch the actors and see where this spirals off to.
When you have somebody like Bill Ayers show up at the protest at the University of Illinois, it's going to trigger a lot of people. It's kind of like, oh, look who's here.
Right.
The guy who started this whole thing. For all intents.
T. Jordan says somebody made a lot of money on tents. And the Kufuras, no kidding.
They're all the same tents.
Who makes the tents? I want to know.
They're all the same tents.
Where are they coming from? Who's making them?
They got them from this, I don't know, LLB, REI, I don't know. But they're all the same tents. They're all white and green. It's like,
Yeah.
well, gee, is that it? I mean, this would be it's a telltale sign that there's outside money moving into the protests.
Well, you could just tell from the barricades that we just looked at. I mean, come on, where did they get all that equipment? And they got special lights, and they got helmets on. They got tents. This is not some kind of organic encampment. I'll admit that, but my reaction is, so what? Bring it on.
Well, here's where I think we need to start having the discussion. The discussion needs to be about America. And, I can sympathize with the Palestinian people, but we're not having a discussion about America and the borders and the inflation and none of the stuff that has made our lives a living hell for the last 4 years. No, we're fixated and focused on this. And it's like, this is not the issue. It's not the issue. However, it can metastasize into the issue if we're paying attention and bringing in, a more nuanced discussion where we're staying out of the polarity, because that's what we need to be talking about. We need to be talking about America and our interests.
Right, because some of this is a diversion, but some of it's not, because America is being used as an evil tool to terrorize the Middle East. It's been going on for decades.
That's part of it. That's part of the discussion, and I think it needs to be on the table, right? And at the same time, it's like, well, that's a real negative projection of America.
Definitely,
and I get it. We need more positive projections of America. Right? We need boots on the ground here in this country to look after our interests. And I don't care what color or race or religion you are, you're an American. And this really is the discussion needs to be had. Not about that country. And again, I empathize with the Palestinians, trust me. I totally empathize with them. And they're getting a fucking raw deal. And at the end of the day, are we going to get caught in this issue and then we're part of the side issue? I think we need to make the conversation bigger. That's my take.
Reasonable. It's reasonable. It's I don't know if it's achievable, but it's reasonable.
Well, I think at some point people are going to get, everything has a lifespan, right? It's like they ran out of juice with Ukraine. They could only squeeze that lemon for so long. And now they got a new issue. And eventually this will run out of juice as well. Because you can only squeeze that lemon for so long. And then there's going to be another thing and another thing and another thing. And it's always moving us away from the intrinsic and salient issues we should be talking about. So we'll see where it goes. I say let the kids protest. It's America. Right? First Amendment. And when you get these clowns coming in and saying you can't have a discussion about this because it's anti-Semitic and it's also, anti this country.
Or saying we got facial recognition on you. We're going to dox you and ruin your life.
I call bullshit.
That's really bullshit.
It's bullshit. And this thing is probably going to go to the Supreme Court. And
I wonder who controls that.
Well,
I keep coming back to Zog a lot, don't I? Zog is very real. That's a fundamental problem with all this stuff.
Well, it's all about the donor class, and Zog is a really, really wealthy and influential donor class.
And then they have the technology. They do have the facial recognitions.
Sure, they've got it's a wealthy donor class. We as people are no longer represented. We're no longer represented. We have no representation.
Yeah, it's an amazing situation.
There's this guy, his name is Leo something. Are you familiar with him? He makes some news now. What's his name? Hold on. I'll tell you in a second. Leonard Leo. Are you familiar with this guy, Leonard Leo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you are?
No.
So this guy, Leonard Leo, is he's on the right. And he apparently is Roman Catholic. He's very conservative. And he supposedly was one of the big financial sources behind overturning Roe v. Wade. So the reason I'm bringing him up is because he's got a shit ton of money. And they're starting to talk about, like, was it New Republic just did a big piece on him, and they're trying to out him as this very powerful, rich, influential kingmaker, right? And it's like, a friend of mine sent me this article, and she's a progressive, and she said, well, what do you think about it? And I said, well, I think it's fine, because there are people on the other side, whether it's Larry Fink or George Soros or whomever, who have their influence and their money. So why not have somebody on the so-called right with their influence and their money? But at the end of the day, it obscures the fact that we don't have any representation.
Well, and then the right is kind of morphing into this anti-First Amendment movement.
Exactly. Right. And who is and who's bringing that forward? It's not that dipshit from New York or Richie Torres from New York. No, it's an outside group with a lot of money who represents the donor class, who wants to make sure that their position is protected. And that
I kind of think Elon Musk is involved in it. I don't know how much he acts like he's defending the First Amendment, but let's see. Let's see now that they've got these laws.
He clearly hasn't done you any favors.
No.
But we live in a weird world, right? So, your reach has been limited, but Elon Musk has just reinstated Nick Fuentes to Twitter.
Yeah, because they need he can't stomp everybody out. So they corral them around certain figures, probably that they got compromised and control, and give them a measure of free speech. Sometimes Nick Fuentes can be pretty blunt.
Nick Fuentes is very blunt.
And there's others, there's Lucas Gage. I mean, there's some pretty a lot more strident than I am.
Right. What's
Just
that guy?
give it free reign.
Jake, what's his name?
Jake Shields.
Jake Shields, yeah.
But they're just all these identifiable names that they just don't. But they don't really want a mob. They don't want a mob of people. So they kind of keep it contained.
I don't think this is going to work, Russ. I feel like that this is all going to implode.
Implode in a what's the outcome of the implosion?
The outcome of the implosion is that we might actually be free of a lot of this bullshit. But it's not going to be pretty. I just don't think it's going to work. I feel like people are like the level of consciousness is raising to a point where people are able to see through things better. We have better means of sharing information. I feel like the muzzle is coming off of people. They're less afraid to talk about things that have been deemed irreproachable. We already mentioned a generation that feels kind of hopeless, and they're like, fuck it, we're all in. Like Nick Fuentes is part of that generation. He's Gen Z. So I feel like you add up all these factors.
Yeah, very, very revolutionary sentiment.
Yeah, you add up all these factors, and then you have all these bad actors who are doing all these things egregiously and out in the open in front of everybody to see now. Ultimately, it's just not a good mix. And I think that it's either going to go into complete and utter crushing fascism and tyranny, and that won't work for a long time.
Well, they kind of have to go there because the
They have
optics
to
are
go
so
there.
bad. The optics are so bad that they got to go that way. There's no turning back.
But it's going to implode. I'm telling you, it is going to implode because they can't do it.
Yeah, heaven falls.
There you go. I think it's a good point to end the show.
Yep.
It's a good ending. All right. If you like what you saw today, go over to Russ's website, winterwatch.net. He's always cranking out articles that are worth your time. And if you feel like supporting him over on Twitter, go over on Twitter. I'm over on Twitter as well. And get on his feed and repost some of his stuff. So there you go. Got anything else you want to add here, Russ?
That's good. And I appreciate the chat tonight. It's good. Good job, guys. It's actually one of your better shows on the chat.
This chat is great. This is a great group. And
Well, not always. Not always. Sometimes I get a little pissed, but they're having healthy debate. They're having healthy debate about this stuff.
I'm biased. With these guys, and I don't always agree.
You got a few people over there that don't like me, but I won't go there.
I don't always agree with them, and they don't always agree with me. But as long as they're respectful, I don't care.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again, Russ.
I'm just being like my dad. My dad would always compliment somebody and then jab them. That's the way my dad was.
Well, Tex was old school.
His nickname was the Insultant.
The Insultant. I like that. Hey, real quick, have you been following any of the games in the NBA in the finals of the playoffs?
No, not paying any attention at all.
I think your dad would have loved Nikola Jokic in that triangle offense.
Oh, they're bringing the triangle back.
No, I just think he would have loved him because Jokic is such a good passer.
Yeah, that's the kind of player he liked.
You put Nikola Jokic in that center position. My God, your dad would have just.
Can he shoot? Can he get into like a jump shot mode at all? Or
he's deadly from 3-point range.
Interesting.
Jokic is amazing.
I'll have to go take a look. I like to find interesting players and take a look at it.
I
will definitely spend 15, 20 minutes looking at that.
He's incredible. You know what's really interesting is that you have Jokic and you have Luka Doncic. And then you have Wembanyama and Antetokounmpo. These guys are foreign players, particularly Luka and Jokic. There's been this huge backlash in the NBA, particularly with former NBA players, where they don't like the European players because they're so good.
Right.
And Gilbert Arenas basically said, I'll tell you how we solved this problem with the European players. Deport him, and he was dead serious. He was dead serious.
Who do you think are the best European players now?
Oh, it's Jokic and Luka. They're the best, man.
So they're still coming out of Serbia and places like that.
Serbia.
Croatia.
Although France. Okay, so here we go. The migration crisis has brought a number of Africans to France. And France is starting to bring these players who've gone through the European training system. And Wembanyama he's a freak anyway. But France is starting to bring these players over now. We're pretty good.
The good athletes.
I would say by and large, it's still like the Croatians, the Montenegrins. Those are the.
The Montenegrins are the tallest people in Europe. Did you know that?
That I did not know.
If you ever go to Montenegro, it's unbelievable. There's all these 6'7" guys everywhere.
Yeah.
And I looked it up. I said to my son, my God, these people are huge, tall guys. And we researched it. We Googled it.
So this, I remember you talking about this. We're just going to end the show on just a little bit of a lighter note. But your father, like when Gilbert Arenas says, we need to deport these guys because they're so good. Your father did clinics in Europe, right?
Sure. He was popular there.
So your father is in some ways responsible for the success of these players because they adopted your father's coaching technique.
He was working with European coaches. I mean, when I was in junior high, he had like a coach from Greece that came and worked with him for a week. He was always having these guys traveling to him, and then eventually he started doing a lot of clinics.
So the rise of the European player can be traced to your father because he influenced other coaches.
I think he was an element.
Yeah.
And I think he also influenced women's basketball a lot. Even though he didn't really put it on equal footing, he worked with the coaches and some of the players.
Did he work with Oriana?
He worked with pretty much. I don't know the names that well. It probably would have been 30 years ago. I don't know who the big coaches were.
Yeah, Tara Vanderveer was coaching at Stanford, so she would have been around. She just retired. Anyway, it's interesting to think about your father's influence on the American side of the game, which is considerable, but even the European side of the game.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
He was over there. I mean, he was involved with it, definitely.
Yeah. All right, Russ, I'll see you over on Twitter, and we'll see you in a month. A lot happened in the last month since we had you on the show.
Everybody.
You take good care.
Stay out of trouble.
All right.
Bye.
The great Russ Winter. Go check him out over on winterwatch.net. Thanks for hanging in there. You guys are an awesome chat. And I don't know what was going on. Russ was paying attention to it. But I'm sure you were having a spirit discussion amongst you and kind of back and forth with some of Russ's positions and thoughts. But I'm sure you handled it really, really well. But it's one of the brilliant parts about doing this show is the fact that there's a whole other show going on in chat, and it's a really high level conversation. And and I think people will disagree, but they still come back, which is awesome. So thank you, Chataria, for showing up today. Let's see, what else do we have? Tomorrow we've got the webinar on Jupiter and Gemini for all you members. And then on Sunday night Astro Live. I got a lot of good things in store for us to talk about. In the meantime, thank you. Take care. God bless. We'll see you on Sunday night. Bye for now.